Hey everybody, it's Mr. Zabo. Today we are going to talk about solving absolute value equations. So keep in mind, when we're solving an absolute value equation, we have to make sure that the side with the absolute value is cleared out of everything except the absolute value before we continue solving. So in this case, this plus 1 is not in the right spot. I've got to move it to the other side, and if I'm switching these sides, I have to use inverse operations. So I'm going to subtract the 1 from both sides. That leaves absolute value of 2x minus 3 on the left side and leaves 14 on the right. Remember, absolute value is a distance from 0, so if I had the absolute value of x equals 5, it's saying what numbers are 5 units away from 0, and there's two of them. X could be 5 or x could be negative 5, because they're both 5 units away from 0. In this case, I don't have just x inside my absolute value, I have an expression. But the concept doesn't change. I still know that everything that's inside this absolute value, this whole 2x minus 3, is 14 units away from 0. So that 2x minus 3 is going to be at 14, or the 2x minus 3 is going to be at negative 14. And that gives me two equations to solve. These are not inequalities. So we solve the same way we've been solving for a couple chapters now. I'm going to add 3 to both sides, and I get 2x equals 17. Now I can divide both sides by 2, and I get x equals 17 over 2, or x equals 8.5. Or I want to continue solving and solve my second inequality as well. So in this case, when I do the same steps, add 3 to both sides, I'm going to wind up with a different answer, because we get 2x equals negative 11, and dividing by 2 on both sides leaves x equals negative 5.5. That would be the solution to my absolute value equation. If I were to ask you to graph that, remember, on a number line, this is not an inequality. There will be graphing points, but there will not be graphing of any lines, like any shading. So I'd want to see 8.5 on the number line, and for my purposes right now, I just need to make sure you recognize that that's positive, so it's going to be to the right of 0. I need to see negative 5.5 on the number line, which again is negative, so that's going to be to the left of 0. And since we are just graphing these points and they are equal, it would just be graphing this as a solid circle. Graph the points, and whether you graph them above the number line or if you graph them on the number line, that's fine. Just recognize there is no shading here at all with equations. We will follow this up with an absolute value inequality video as well.